Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this conversation on library design with all of its challenges and opportunities. It is part of a series of conversations with architects that the IATUL Special Interest Group on Space Design is doing in order to stimulate a global conversation on the topic. I'm Kornelia Tancheva, the Hillman University Librarian and Director of the University Library System at the University of Pittsburgh. And I'm joined today by Anne Chen, the Principal Architect and Designer of a complete re-envisioning and redesign of the Central Campus Library on the Pittsburgh campus, which began actually at some point in the 2010s and the construction of which started in 2018. The projected finish time of our project is 2025. Anyway, these conversations are not specifically about a renovation project, a library renovation project. They're more about the architects and their vision about what the library of the future looks like. So let's dive right in. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the design of libraries?
Yes, thank you, Cornelia, and I really appreciate being here and talking to you about libraries, which I feel very passionate about. The first library I worked on in design was the renovation of the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh main library. That was back in 1999. It was at a time when communication on computers and with devices was really starting to take hold. I remember one of the things that was a real challenge was whether wireless communication would be allowed, wireless access would be allowed in the library. And at the time, the person in charge said, absolutely not, which, given where we are today, it's a really interesting, the rapid trajectory of how technology has really affected libraries, library operations, and design as well. Since then, I've worked on a number of branch public libraries as well as several university libraries, and have always found them to be incredibly interesting in terms of the rapid evolution, I think, of how the staff and leadership of libraries really sees their role in the whole ecosystem of learning.
Thank you. So when you think about all the library buildings, public or research libraries or any other type of library buildings that you've seen or read about or seen pictures of, is there a library building that's really been an inspiration for you in your design work?
It's interesting. I don't think I can point to one. It really is the trajectory and the evolution of the building as a typology that really mirrors what the library is to people. And so I think, some of the influential libraries the most influential libraries are the ones we've been to, right? I mean, they're the ones that have really shaped our own experience. And for me, that's been, I would point to, of course, my, public library when I was a little kid, which was kind of this neoclassical, little fake kind of typology. But it was a wonderful library in terms of how it made me feel comfortable and able to access information and books and periodicals. Then my university library was kind of a neo-Gothic building, which was incredibly inspiring because it was one of the first places where I understood kind of volume of space and in some ways how small you feel relative to an institution. I think then the university or the architecture library at Columbia University is this really beautiful small space that has these kind of stacked lovely cast iron shelves and, a catwalk around the main space. And being surrounded by books is just this sort of wonderful, comforting feeling. I would say now, the trend towards libraries that are much more sort of curvilinear and organic. And if you think about almost all of the libraries recently that Snow Hetta designs, so there's one at Temple University. They There's one in Calgary. It's a public library. Of course, the one down in North Carolina. These are much more, they really speak to the library being about people and being connected, that people are connected to nature, and thereby these organic forms and wood materials really speak to that. And I find those to be quite inspiring as well.
I was fortunate enough recently to visit the Charles Library at Temple University, and I know exactly what you mean. And I actually have seen pictures of the public library in Calgary. So my very envious reaction when I visited the Charles Library was, oh, that's what it means when you start from scratch, where you can actually construct a new building instead of renovating a building that already exists. And in one way or another, you're constrained by the current building. All right, so you might have started answering my next question a little bit, because it is about most important trend that you see in library design today. Is it accommodating technology changes? Is it accommodating or incorporating nature? Is it curvilinear linear design? What is it that you would point out as something that is very current and will stay with us for some time in the future? I don't want to say for the foreseeable future, because nobody knows how long trends are.
Oh boy. I mean, it's hard for me to answer this question without connecting it to what I think is important.
Of course.
And I really think it is about people. It's about the connection of the librarian and the staff at the library to the people who are using the library. It's about how the person engages with the resource of the library, whether they be technology, books, the people, the specialists within the library. I think that's the most important. And as we increasingly find, our communities fragmented because, frankly, of technology. I mean, technology can bring us together, but it also has, can really divide and separate. I feel really strongly that the library is a part of how we can come together and understand each other and understand what is real. So I think the most important trend is libraries that are really designed for human connection.
Thank you. That's a very inspirational thought, and hopefully something that will be with us for the foreseeable future.
Yes, I hope so.
All right. Thinking about the flip side of that question, if this is the inspiration in library design, what is, you think, the greatest challenge in redesigning or designing from scratch libraries today?
Funding.
Isn't that always the challenge?
That is the challenge. I mean, I think that is always the challenge. And it is a testament to how the people that really believe, the community that is committed to how important libraries are, that there is funding available for new library buildings, that there is funding available for renovating and really investing in library spaces. Honestly, I do think that's the greatest challenge in a world where, we see that revenue generation is king. Libraries absolutely contribute to revenue generation, but it's a much more indirect way. And so it can be very difficult to get funding. I would say a challenge, is certainly information. I mean, the fact that, there is so much information out there that is not factual, and do we even call that information? I really think it is a challenge to, um, I'm going to put a little plug in here, which is that it feels to me that libraries and the expertise within libraries are going to be an essential part of communities recognizing how to differentiate validated information from the non-validated kind of miasma that's out there. How
Thank you so much
spaces,
for that.
how spaces help support that. I, I'm not incredibly sure. I think it has a lot to do with, the kind of multiplicity of spaces in the library, whether they be, spaces for gathering and conversation, spaces for, events like seminars and discussions and lectures, whether they be spaces for, focused activity. I don't know. Somehow libraries really do need, I think, are critical in pointing to how we recognize validated information.
Well, that's such a lofty principle to keep in mind. And maybe it also speaks to what I was going to ask you next, which is if you had to give advice to your colleagues that are just starting out and they're considering starting with redesigning or designing from scratch research libraries, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them?
Oh gosh, it's to learn about what libraries do and what, expertise relies in a library. I think so much of what librarians and libraries provide is not necessarily surfaced. And so it is incredibly important to understand the breadth of the resources that libraries provide to the communities that they service. I think that's fundamental. I have always been surprised by, what, you guys do that? You provide that? I feel like in the 25 years I have worked on libraries, there is always something new that I'm learning about the library and what you provide.
So that's a thought that maybe can summarize our conversation today. How can space and how can design surface what libraries do? What is sort of hidden from the more facile first look at libraries, or even the perception of what libraries have always done? How can
Absolutely.
design reveal the new and also old things that research libraries do? All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us today that I didn't ask you about?
No, I think that last point that you made, it's certainly something that you tried to, as, designers for the renovation of your library, that was something we really tried to do. And it, hopefully the public really recognizes and is able to see all of the things that the library can provide, and that piques their interest.
I hope so too. Thank you so much. For those of you who might be listening to us, on the slide here that's displayed, you have our contact information. If you have any additional questions or you want to learn more about what Anne thinks about design and designing libraries in general, what other projects she has done, or you have questions about specifically the Hillman Library renovation, please don't hesitate to contact either one of us. We'd be happy to talk with you. Thank you again.
Thank you.